All right, so welcome to class number 7. And
Mhm.
I know that we have been through a lot. You guys have had a lot of wins. We've had a lot of life happen. So continued prayers out to Grace and to Debbie. I know they've gone through some very traumatic and scary things, this past week or two. So they will not be joining us this week. But we have a recording, and I don't want to throw a whole lot at you because there's so much to absorb. So we're just going to have kind of a low key presentation, a low key talk about history. Our scripture is Ecclesiastes 1:9. And it says, "What has been is what shall be. What has been done is what will be done. And there's no new matter under the sun." Nothing's new. And we've heard that before. There's nothing new under the sun. Everything is repetition, but it doesn't seem like it because we have new technologies and we have new stuff we're learning, and we're like, oh my gosh. Um, and it's easy to get overwhelmed, but let's just take things one step at a time and let's learn how other people did things. And we're going to talk about the history of money, and we're also going to talk about the history of Bitcoin. Now, when I talk about the history of money, it's basically something called fiat. And you may have heard that term. What the heck is fiat? Fiat is basically a money system that's not backed by anything. And as we've had our talks, we did say, hey, once upon a time in America, there was money and it was backed by silver and gold. And everybody knew when they got that little piece of paper, it was almost like an IOU for silver or gold. You could exchange it at any time and you knew exactly how much silver or gold you'd get. And during the Nixon era, he's like, you know what, we're not doing that anymore. And as soon as he separated the paper from something of value to back it, what was it backed by? Thin air. And we talked last week about gold, how much of our dollars could buy a certain amount of gold. And it was pretty stable until that happened with Nixon. And now we can see more and more our dollars don't buy as many eggs. Our dollars don't buy as much meat, right? We see that in our everyday. So we're going to talk a little bit about, has this ever happened before? What have people done? I'm pulling up my notes here. Uh, so ancient civilizations had the same problems. And here's a little bit. Have you ever noticed your quarters have all those little ridges on them? All right. You want to know why? Originally, money used to be coins, and Rome was certainly known for this. I'm sure they're not the only culture that was known for this, but they devalued the money, not by printing more, but by scraping off some of the silver or gold, just a little, so you wouldn't even notice it. And then people would blithely go about trading their silver or gold. Everybody thinks it's a certain weight, just a little was scraped off. So the people that were governing Rome, they were lining their coffers and spending it on whatever the heck they felt like. Somebody came up with an idea. All right, we're going to start creating money with little ridges, because if that was scraped off, you'd be able to tell. All right, so that's something called debasement. And that, again, it's not a new thing for government to take advantage of the money supply and manipulate it. Not a new thing. Will our dollar ever just vanish into thin air? Ever? If you start to study fiat history, there's a saying that all fiat currency will go back to its intrinsic value, which is basically how much value is this piece of paper? Eventually, all fiat currency will be as worthless as paper. When will that happen for the US? I don't know. Will it happen in our lifetime? I don't know. But let's talk about ancient Rome in the 3rd century. They had something called a denarius, and you may have heard that term if you read the Bible. And it was silver. And they would scrape it off. They would debase it. So a new currency was instituted. It was called an Antonianus, and then later an Argentius. All right, so that currency would fail. They'd have a new currency, and then guess what would happen? They do the same thing. All right, so, and what would happen when they would do that? Inflation would happen and loss of trust. Prices would soar, trade would falter. Rome had heavy taxes and lots of military spending that drained resources. They had slave labor, which caused unemployment. And I want you to think about that. You might want to write that down if you're taking notes, because we're going to tie that in later. Slave labor caused unemployment. And that reduced productivity. It eroded confidence, and it led to an economic decline. So that's 3rd century AD. Let's talk about Germany in the 1920s after World War I. Their currency failed. Now, after World War I, Germany obviously lost. There was something called the Treaty of Versailles. And this treaty basically was extremely harsh and extremely punitive to Germany. It was so harsh that Germany had to print more money to pay the debts, the reparations for the war. It ended up, if you want to know the name of the currency, it was the Papiermark. And then they had a new currency called the Rentenmark. And then later they had the Reichsmark. But in 1923, this is not too long ago, prices started doubling daily. Daily. Now, people that lived way in the country, that grew their own food, they were not affected as harshly, but people that lived more in the cities, it was devastating. Men would have their wives come in the early afternoon and then the afternoon so they could get paid twice a day. So their wives could rush off and say, maybe I can buy an umbrella or a pair of gloves, just something to trade the failing currency into something physical. Can you imagine that? There are pictures from that era where they're just rolling wheelbarrows full of money. It was at the point where they're like, you know what? It's a lot cheaper to take all this paper and use it for fuel than it is to go buy some wood for our fireplace. Crazy, so crazy. Again, nothing new under the sun. How about Hungary in the 1940s? They had the worst hyperinflation ever in 1946, and prices were doubling every 15 hours. See, this didn't happen overnight. It was slow inflation, and then it just went parabolic. So in Hungary, they had something called the pengo, and it became worthless. They needed to create a brand new currency. And again, war was part of it. They had reparations to the Soviet Union, and they printed money just like Germany did. That forint, the new currency, actually reset their economy. That was in the 1940s. Yugoslavia, you may have heard of the dinar. This was in the 1990s. Again, this was in our lifetime. Hyperinflation peaked at 313 million% per month in 1994. And the dinar became worthless during Yugoslavia's collapse. They had an internal war, a civil war. They had economic sanctions. And again, the government was printing money to fund the war. And it was disastrous. Now, we all know about the euro. This was a little different. Currencies, Germany, again, they got a new currency. They had the Deutschmark, it became the euro. France had the franc, it became the euro. Italy had the lira, it became the euro. Greece had the drachma, and it became the euro. Also, Spain, Portugal, Austria, they adopted the euro. They wanted economic integration. And do we want to call this a failure of currency? And essentially, the currency was wiped out and a new currency was put in its place. They had a little more control. The citizens had a little bit more foreshadowing of it. They had a little bit more preparation. But again, I think men just mess things up. It really was not a fair trade of currency. My husband's from Italy, and he used to be able to go over there and $1 could buy like $1.50 worth of stuff. If you were, Italy had its own culture and its own currency, and each country had its own culture and currency. And frankly, it's hard for me to explain. Now, for us to go over, it's a lot more expensive. We need to have more dollars to get less stuff versus when the lira was in place. And countries like Italy and Greece, they suffered while other countries like Britain didn't. So again, currencies changing. Zimbabwe was horrible. I used to see pictures where people would have this money that was like $800 million printed on one bill, but it took like 3 of those $800 million bills to buy half a dozen eggs. Hyperinflation in 2008, during our housing crisis, hyperinflation was hitting nearly 80 billion% each month. 80 billion%. My brain does not even, I can't even wrap my head around 80 billion%. I can't even wrap my head around it. So they had a Zimbabwean dollar, and now, this is kind of crazy, now they have a multi-currency system. They use the South African rand and not their own currency because it hyperinflated itself out of existence. They also have something called an RTGS dollar that was instituted in 2019, but they were printing money. Again, that government was printing money. Venezuela, again, they had the Bolivar, Fuerte. Now they have a digital Bolivar as of 2021. So again, hyperinflation exceeded over 1 million% in 2018. That was so close to us. We're in 2025. So again, the government was overspending, big shocker. And of course, Venezuela, there was corruptions. Again, big shocker, corruptions in the government. So this is just examples that nothing new is under the sun. Governments become corrupt. Either they start corrupt and they stay corrupt, or they start good and they become corrupt. Governments are not always the greatest at managing money. So we have that. Now, before the money system, gold and silver. Gold and silver were typically traded. There was the barter system. People even traded in goods like spices. Lack of a universal currency caused them to trade in those things, but it's unwieldy. It's something that we don't really use today because we can't really send a bar of gold over to a different country. You know, it's just not feasible. We use digital transactions. We can wire money to any country with our computer, less than 24 hours. So things have changed. And my phone is ringing and I gotta turn it off. Alrighty. There we go. So it's a little scary. That is honestly a little scary. But again, nothing new under the sun. History is a repetition. All right, so how does Bitcoin fit in? Well, some people call Bitcoin digital gold. Bitcoin, it transcends every currency on the planet. Now, as I'm telling you about this, I'm not telling you to go out and buy Bitcoin today. I'm not telling you not to do that. I'm just giving a history of this digital currency, just a very brief high-level history. And I'm going to screen share and put up some little slides. Nothing fancy. And as I talk about Bitcoin, when it started, nobody knows who really started Bitcoin. If you think that's suspicious, I do too. Some people think it's something to do with the CIA. If you were to read a book called Confessions of an Economic Hitman, that will open your eyes to a lot of stuff that the CIA has done to manipulate who's going to be in power in other countries and how they were manipulating finances. So, hey, I wouldn't put it past them. But it really doesn't matter who started Bitcoin because it's accepted right now. And it is not going away. Banks are using it. PayPal is using it. Mortgage companies are starting to use Bitcoin as collateral, which is outrageous. So let's talk about Bitcoin. Why do they call Bitcoin digital gold? Because There is a limit to how much gold is in the earth, and there's a limitation onto how we mine gold. Bitcoin, the maximum and total amount of Bitcoins that will or can ever exist is 21 million. So there is a cap to Bitcoin. And that makes it valuable. Bitcoin can't be printed like a currency. We can't print gold. We can print more currency.
What was that amount again? 21 million?
Yeah. Are you able to see my screen?
Oh, there it is. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yes, I see it.
All right. So there's a similarity with gold because there's a limit. Now, Bitcoin is being mined. It's not mined in the same way that gold is mined. It's mined through computers. Everything that we do online has to do with numbers and algorithms and mathematics and coding, right? Software, hardware, firmware, all of these things that even make it possible for us to see each other. So, the way that Bitcoin is mined, they have very intense high-level computers that solve math problems, high-level algorithms. And whichever miner is able to solve that math problem, they get the Bitcoin. So there's a race for Bitcoins. They win the Bitcoin and they can sell it to me or you. If you're on Coinbase, that's an easy way to buy Bitcoin. They can exchange it, they can keep it, and it takes an incredible amount of electricity and computing power to mine Bitcoin. But again, it's like a mathematical problem. Here's a price history for Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin back in 2010, can you imagine if you could go in a time machine back to 2010 and get Bitcoin for 9 cents? In November, March, let's see, March. It was around 2023, November, it hit a high of 76,000 from 9 cents back in 2010. Crazy. Today and yesterday, it was nearing 120,000. If we would have had this class last year in November, we could have got Bitcoin at almost half price from what it is today. Now, if you don't know this, you don't have to buy a whole coin of Bitcoin. I think I own 0.00032986743 Like I own just a small, tiny fraction. But here is the history of Bitcoin. And it's kind of crazy. So if you would have bought it back then in 2010 or 2011 when it was 26 bucks and not $120,000, then it was $13. And right around 2013, 2014, it spiked at $1,238, about the price of gold. And then boom, it plummeted to around 26 bucks. Can you imagine if you bought Bitcoin at $1,238 and then a week later you found out it was only worth 30 bucks? How would you feel? Okay. Now, I want you to think about this because the stock market goes up and down. And if you understand what you're investing in and you invest wisely, you're not going to panic when stuff like this happens. That's why you need to understand what you're investing in. So, and also you need to understand what you're investing in, what they're investing in. All right. So let's suppose that happened. You bought Bitcoin at 1,238. It crashed to 30, and your heart is pumping, and you think you're the stupidest person in the world, but you hold on to it. You don't panic, you don't sell, and then it rises and it rises. And in 2018, Bitcoin is $20,000. And you're like, oh man, I bought one Bitcoin at 1,238 and it's going up. I'm in it for the long term. I'm going to buy a new Bitcoin for $20,000 because the Bitcoin you bought for 1,238 is now worth 20,000. So hey, let's buy another one. A week later, you wake up to find out that Bitcoin you bought for 20,000 just crashed to $10,000. And then down some more to less than $7,000 in June. Again, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so stupid. What the heck did I do? But hey, at least I have two Bitcoins. I bought one back for 1,238 and I bought a second one for 20,000. So I'm kind of at break even though it dropped. Okay, because I was looking at it for the long term. So I'll hold on to it. Again, it cranks up, it cranks up. You're like, I don't know if it's going to go down again. It cranks up to almost $70,000. You do the same thing. You buy another Bitcoin with your retirement money or whatever, or you sell a car, and then boom, you're like, oh my gosh, I bought it a high again and it dropped to 18,000. I have three Bitcoins. What the heck am I doing? And then boom, $77,000 in November. And then boom, all the way over here, $120,000. You're like, I don't have $120,000. I don't have 60,000. I have 30,000. I'll buy just a tiny portion of Bitcoin. Do you see where I'm going with this? Now, whatever happened in the past does not necessarily predict the future, but we see a pattern. If you decide to hold Bitcoin, or if you decide to invest in anything that uses Bitcoin, you got to be prepared for these crazy drops. These are called Bitcoin winters. And it's a scary thing, but if you're talking long term, if you're talking legacy, if you have at least 10 years to invest, and this is not the only strategy, this is like a long-term growth strategy. This is different from buying stocks that pay you a dividend. All right, this is a growth strategy. And some people feel that a wealth transfer is taking place. And if you don't have something in Bitcoin, Bitcoin's going up. What's happening to our dollar? Our dollar's buying less. We need to bring more paper to the store to buy the same amount of goods. But what's happening to Bitcoin? If you could draw a line from here up to here, you would be up. Even if you bought at the highs, you'd still be ahead. It'd be nice to buy at the lows. That's why we have dollar cost averaging. Now, let's talk about, it's so expensive now. Is it even worth it? Did I miss my chance for Bitcoin? Well, this is something called an S curve. You are here. This is where we're at. It's still not too late. if you choose to study Bitcoin a little bit more and decide if you want to put a portion of your investment money in Bitcoin. Again, I want to reiterate, banks are using Bitcoin. PayPal is using Bitcoin. Credit cards are using Bitcoin. Businesses are accepting Bitcoin instead of US dollars. Bitcoin is everywhere. It's not going away. Now, I want to get more Bitcoin. I bought Bitcoin 4 years ago. I put $100 in one place, $100 in another place, and it like doubled or tripled. And I was like, wow, I should have put more in. I was just really suspicious of it. And I'm like, this is just weird. But again, remember, we use digital currency all the time. We use our credit cards. We pay our bills online. It's all digital. It's all digital. And will the dollar fall to the wayside and we'll be using some form of digital currency? Probably. When? I don't know. Now, here's another thing that people don't talk about when it comes to Bitcoin is the blockchain. And I'm not going to get deep into it, but as miners mine Bitcoin, data is stored in like little blocks. And once a block opens, data is put there, and then the block is closed, and it is on a permanent record or a permanent ledger. And this record is being used by law firms and financial firms to store documents. Now, I actually cannot articulate the massive impact that that's having. It's like having a superhuman notary public or something. It's stored on the blockchain. Anybody can use it. Wills, trusts, paperwork that's incorporated, and that is powerful. And it's being stored, anything on the blockchain is being stored at different computers all across the world. If one set of computers in one country was nuked and that entire country vaporized, the trail would still be on somebody else's computer in another country. This is as close as we can get to a permanent record. Another thing about Bitcoin is they call it decentralization. It's decentralized. There's no one entity controlling it. No one entity controlling it. It is universal and global, almost like open source software. Nobody owns it and can manipulate it, theoretically. So it's not too late for Bitcoin. I'm going to go back to the mining of coins. Way back in 2009, 21 million Bitcoins were able to be mined. That was at the start of it. They have something called halves and halving cycles. So that's a term you might want to look at. Back in 2012, they had mined half the Bitcoins. So they only had 10,500,000 left. Again, in 2016, in 2016, now we're looking at 4-year cycles now, it halved again. Now there's only 5,250,000 coins. 4 years later, it went in half again. 2024, half again. Now there's 1 million, over 1 million. We're just going to say over 1 million. That's how many coins are left to be mined. From 21 million, now it's down to 1,300,000. So there will come a point when there's no more Bitcoin mining. And at that point, you'll have to buy Bitcoin from someone being willing to sell it. This is, I'm sorry, this is a very crazy table, but I just want to show you the past 14 years of assets and the returns. And this is in order of how they performed. The past 14 years, digital assets have been outperforming the NASDAQ 100, the S&P 500. And I know, Beth, you know about the S&P 500 because that's where your money was. What was doing better than the S&P 500? Bitcoin, Ethereum, which is like the number 2 most popular digital asset. And Solana, again, another type of digital asset. They all outperformed the US NASDAQ 100. REITs, treasuries, stocks, high yield bonds outperformed gold. And of course, no surprise, it outperformed cash. Yeah, cash is not outperforming much of anything. Okay, we saw that one. Let's look at how Bitcoin is performing in relation to inflation. And this is a 14-year annualized return. It's kind of like the same thing I just talked about, but in a prettier format. And you'll see that the big yellow bar here is Bitcoin. And then way down below is everything else. Everything else. Stocks, cash, commodities, gold, everything else is lagging way behind. I wish I would have known this 14 years ago. Here's another picture of Bitcoin price. This is a little more updated, showing Bitcoin at 108,000. It's closer to 120. And again, we see the chart. Here's 2025. We see the huge, I mean, if we could have gotten Bitcoin right down at 2020, whew, that would have been nice. Huge skyrocket up, huge drop down, skyrocket up, huge drop down. And you see the volatility. But again, it keeps going higher. The return of Bitcoin since 2011, if you would have bought it in 2011 and rode the waves of the ups and downs, you would have had a 147% a year increase. That's the return, 147%. That's amazing. And this, just to give you an idea of Bitcoin, who's owning it. Individuals are owning the most. That's this big block in the middle. Individuals got onto it. Businesses, the stock market, ETFs, exchange traded funds, different funds, governments are getting into Bitcoin. And there's still a portion to be mined. And this right here, when you hold Bitcoin, you want to understand how to hold it. People have lost their Bitcoin. You know, if you have gold in a safe, somebody could break into your house and steal your gold. Some people have lost their keys to their Bitcoin. It's actually a seed phrase, and that if you lose it, you could lose your Bitcoin. So keep it safe just like you would keep your gold safe. I'm not going to get into the details about how to keep Bitcoin safe, but you will learn that as you go along. So I think, all right, and then here is a final chart, Bitcoin versus gold from about 2010 to 2024. And if you'll see, there's a crossover as to what's been invested in Bitcoin. That's been going up. And this little dotted line is what has been invested in gold. That's remained pretty stable. And then this is a relationship of how much Bitcoin you would need to buy an ounce of gold. So just an interesting chart. We're looking at how powerful Bitcoin is becoming. Right here, it was about equal with gold, about the same price for an ounce of gold or a Bitcoin, but then it diverged. So Bitcoin is becoming really, really strong. The final thing that I am going to just touch on is, Beth, you were asking what was the difference between BTC and BCH? BTC being Bitcoin and BCH being cash. So a quick overview. BCH. All right, let me explain it. When Bitcoin started, it was just Bitcoin. Have you guys ever watched any sci-fi and then they have like a break in the timeline and there's like all these different timelines? Have you ever watched any of that stuff? Like a little, okay. That's really nerdy and geeky. But basically, if Bitcoin was a timeline, there was a fork in the road. And Bitcoin continued on its timeline, but BCH or Bitcoin Cash forked off and kind of went its own way. Now, if you owned Bitcoin right before that mark, let's say you had one Bitcoin, and this sort of breakup, this change of path was happening, you would keep your one Bitcoin, but then magically you'd get one BCH. And then they just went on their way. So it's essentially a different digital currency. The most popular is Bitcoin. And if you guys want to take a screenshot of this to read it later, you can do that. Ethereum is the next most popular. And if you look at Ethereum, here's where a lot of the smart contracts that I was talking about happened. Somebody mentioned XRP. I believe that was Deb. And XRP, another digital currency, it is really great for cross-border payments. It's trusted by financial institutions. So if you do a lot of financial trading with other countries, that's when you want to hold XRP. If you're not making payments to other countries, it's not really something that may be of great value to you. This USDC is the US government's stable coin. It's pegged to the US dollar, but it's basically the United States form of its own personal digital currency. So this is just a huge, huge overview. And I also have a little, all right, I'm going to cancel that. Something to help you buy Bitcoin if you want to buy Bitcoin. So I'm going to stop sharing. I can send that to you. I'm going to, oh, it popped up. I'll send that to you. So went through a lot. I'm going to go get something to drink. I'm going to let you guys just take a breath and absorb everything. You don't need to understand anything I just said because I did not understand it when I first heard of it. Come up with some questions and thoughts, and I'll be right back. Thank you for letting me get up and get a drink. That was a lot. But it's important information because the future is here. So I will open it up for any questions and thoughts. And I do want to say the homework is not related to Bitcoin at all. The homework is for you guys to, number one, pick a trading day. And if you can pick a trading day and a trading time each week, that's going to benefit you for consistency. And also pick a learning time as well. It might be Saturday afternoon, it might be, Sunday night when everybody's gone to bed. But if you can be consistent, doesn't have to be for 5 hours. It could be for 15 minutes. Buy one stock, just one. And take some time to learn. That's if you pick that day, let us know what your day and time is. And small steps consistently will give you huge results because we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. So create a system that's going to work for you. All right, so talk to me. What's going on in your heads about
Well, I was kept thinking about the 20 million only Bitcoin. That just doesn't seem like very much at all. It seems so limited. So there's going to be a small amount of people that control the wealth. Is that how you see it?
actually it was designed to have wealth spread across the globe. Now, when I say 21 million Bitcoin, you're going to need to realize you don't have to buy the whole Bitcoin.
I do realize that, but
So, like I said, I have 0.000. I have 4,000, 4,000. I have almost 8,000 in Bitcoin. I had four. I just put another four in today after hearing Hans's strategy so I can try and work it.
you have $8,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've got 0.00000 point, 3 to, I have like a tiny, tiny fraction of a single Bitcoin. Now, this is a crazy, crazy story. As you talked about who's going to control the wealth, there's a place called Bitcoin Beach. It was one of the places where early adopters could go, and they only accepted Bitcoin. I don't even know what country it's in, but you can look it up.
Hmm.
Bitcoin Beach could only accept Bitcoin. Very intriguing. There are people in other countries, like these countries like Argentina, that lost their wealth. People could not get jobs. People with high level skills like accountants and white collar workers, they had to do labor to even get money. And what they would do is they would play video games. They would play video games that rich, wealthy kids like to play. And sometimes you go through these video games and you get the prizes and you get the upgrades and you go on your journey. I don't play a lot of video games. I'm guessing you guys don't either. When you play video games, you can play live with other people around the world. And what these people would do, I believe it was in Argentina and probably other countries, is they would say, hey, I'll go ahead and get that token or that sword or that thing that you want in the video game if you send me this much Bitcoin.
Wow.
And that's how these people were getting out of poverty during hyperinflation.
Wow. That's a crazy story.
It is. And as far as who's going to control the Bitcoin, governments are just getting into it now. But the people all around the world have more control of the Bitcoin because they started it. Now, there was one thing that I wanted to remember, talked about slavery, something about slave labor contributing to the fall of fiat currency, slave labor contributing to hyperinflation. The new slave labor is AI, robotics.
Mhm.
So I just want you to keep that in mind. A wealth transfer is happening before our very eyes. We
Mhm.
have new slave labor, which is robotics. We see when we go to the grocery store, we've got to do it ourselves. They don't need to hire as many cashiers because they've got their little automatic robot machine that we can do. There are stores that you can walk in, there's nobody in the store. You walk in, you walk out, whatever you put in your cart gets automatically charged to your card. You don't even need to go through checkout. I went to a big box. I went to Costco or BJ's or one of those stores, and they had like a little robot going down all the aisles, scanning stuff, checking stuff. It's here. It's here. Slave labor that never gets sick, that never calls in sick, that doesn't need a dental plan, doesn't need a medical plan, doesn't need a pension. So what do we do? But great question. Great question.
So, and follow up with the Bitcoin, you mentioned, or one of your slides showed that there was quite a bit, I think it was 1 million, at least a little over 1 million of lost Bitcoin, misplaced Bitcoin.
Okay.
So will that ever go back into circulation?
Nope. No, it won't. And again, I'm trying to condense so much into a short thing, but I'm going to give you guys stuff to write down and investigate on your own. It's a journey. You could go open up account with Coinbase, which you did, Beth. You can dip your toe into buying a little Bitcoin. There are some phrases that you need to know with Bitcoin. One is KYC. KYC. It stands for Know Your Customer. So when you register with an exchange, you will need to prove your identity. They will be asking for some form of state-issued identity and biometrics to prove it's you. No KYC, know your customer. There is another phrase, not your keys, not your Bitcoin. Not your keys, not your Bitcoin. I'm going to explain that in terms of banking. We all have a bank that we can go and get our money out of, right? Like anybody go to the ATM or whatever, pull out some cash. When you open up an account with a bank and you put your money in it, most people don't realize that money is not yours anymore.
Huh.
It's not yours. You gave it to the bank. You're a creditor. You gave them the money, and they're going to do with it whatever they want. It's not your money anymore. Has anybody ever watched It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart?
Yes.
Have you seen that, Sarah? It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart. Write that down. Watch it around Christmas time. It's one of the best movies ever made. It's definitely up there. It is probably my #1 favorite movie ever. So Beth, you'll remember the bank run and everybody's trying to get their money out and Jimmy Stewart stands up. He's like, your money's not here. Your money is in her house. Your money is in his business.
Yeah.
You know? So they were desperately trying to stay open because there were bank failures that actually happened, which is why you'll see that your money is FDIC insured up to, I think, 150,000, or if you're married and it's a joint account, it might be 200 or 250,000. Your money is insured because what if the bank fails? You've given the money to the bank, and do you even get interest on it? Maybe a savings account, you get 0.01% interest, like you get a dime like every other month or something. So the money's not yours. You gave it to the bank, and the bank has taken that money and they're making money off it. They're investing it, they're giving it to people for mortgages, and there's something called, this is going to blow your mind, write it down, look up stuff later. Fractional reserve banking. fractional reserve banking. All money is loaned into existence. It's loaned into existence. Sarah, you put your $100 into the bank, and then Beth comes along 15 minutes later and says, hey, I want to borrow $90. I want to open a little lemonade stand, and it's a business loan. I already have the lemonade stand built. I need a few more things. I have collateral. And the bank's like, yeah, we can loan you $90. And then you come back 15 minutes later and you want your $100. They're like, they don't have it. They just loaned it to somebody else. It's a very weird thing that it's hard for our human minds to wrap around, but not your key, not your keys, not your crypto. So it is the same thing with crypto. If you buy something on Coinbase or Kraken or one of the exchanges, you buy it, but it's not yours until you take it out and have it in your hot little hands like cash. It's not really yours, right? You've given them money and you're the creditor. They owe it to you. Are they going to default? Are they going to pay you when you want it?
That's the way I feel about real estate too. Even your home, you don't really own it unless, because if you don't pay taxes on it, they're going to come back and take it. So I'm still just renting my own property from the government.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So here is what a hard storage or cold storage wallet looks like. This is like a Faraday cage. Does anybody know what a Faraday cage is? All right. This is crazy. All right. If there's an EMP burst, suppose there's like a nuke was detonated in the atmosphere. If that happens, all electronics get shut down and they might never restart. It's an electromagnetic pulse, an EMP pulse. Everything is shut down. Now, I don't think this is going to happen, but lots of conspiracy theorists have imagined it, just so if you have computers, if we're imminent and war is imminent and you want to protect your computers, you can put it in like a big metal garbage can. Have you seen those metal garbage cans? All right, so if you have electronics with data on it that you want to survive an EMP blast, you can put it in one of those, and then you have to seal it so none of the magnetic pulse can get to it, and it will be protected. It's called a Faraday cage. You can buy Faraday pouches, make your own, to put your phone in or whatever. I'm not worried about that, but this is waterproof. So this is secured. It's waterproof. And here I have what I store my Bitcoin on. It's a little, if you see it, it says ledger. And if you don't see it, you can replay it and put it on a big screen, but there's something called Ledger. You can look at ledger.com. There are more expensive ones and cheaper ones, but right here is where I put the cord. There's a cord I put in there. It's got a USB port. I can hook it up to my computer, and there's little buttons here. Like it's pretty simple to use. You have like a little password, but I can download my Bitcoin or my crypto to this. And it's like a little safe. It's like putting gold in a safe. I can put my crypto in this safe. And there's something called a You can't make it up. They give it to you. There's something called a secret recovery phase or a seed phrase, and you will get 24 random words. 24 random words. So if you ever lose this, nobody will be able to get your crypto unless they know those 24 words. So you want to keep them in separate places, like a fireproof, waterproof safe. That's where you want to put that. Keep them separate. So if you ever lose this, you can still recover your crypto if you have those 24 words. I know it's kind of crazy. It's like, are we spies? You know, what's going on? We know how many scams happen. I've been hearing this where people have picked up the phone and it sounds like their child. And they're like, oh my gosh, my car is stuck. I was in an accident. Can you just, I need your credit card number so that I can get some money to have this fixed and get a ride home. And it's not your child, but it sounds exactly like them because somehow and so there's so many scams out there. So you can't be too, this is offline. You will never put these 24 words, you'll never text them to anybody because texting, it's like a postcard. If you send a postcard through the mail, the postman can read it, the people changing everybody can read it. That's what texting is like. It can be plucked out of the air. So that's one way to protect your crypto. But again, you don't need to worry about this today. This is just something to keep in mind as your crypto amount gets bigger. You know, I'm not going to put 10 bucks in my safe, but I will put the big dollars. So this is just a path for you to think about. This is just a huge overview of how to protect yourself. And if you looked at my post today in Wealth Builders, I want to do that two-factor authentication with Coinbase, but I'm going to wait until I have a little separate from this. This is the crypto safe, and it can hold all sorts of crypto, all the ones I mentioned, but separately I'm getting a little key that has a password. You know how on your phone you can put in a password and nobody can open your phone unless they put the PIN? Some people have biometrics, they need to see your face or a fingerprint. This is just another level of security that has a special pass key on like a little USB thing. So it's
So you think Ethereum will go big like Bitcoin? We probably should be buying some of that as well.
all right. I'm not gonna tell you what to buy. I'm just telling you what's most popular right now. And if you're going to buy it, you're going to want to understand more about it and why you're holding it. I know people that they've only bought Bitcoin and they've bought it for the past 10 years and they just hold it. If you want to sound like you know what you're talking about, you can say, I have some Bitcoin, I'm a hodler. HODLR. HODLR. It basically is you're saying you hold Bitcoin and you're not going to ever sell it or trade it. You're just buying it to hold. So they switched holder, they switched it to hodler, HODLR. Like it's just weird. But you have to know why you're doing it. I personally would like to hold Bitcoin because I'm losing faith in fiat currency. I know what happens to fiat currency. You guys now know what happens to fiat currency. I want to hold Bitcoin as a store of value like gold. If I don't have a big bar of gold, but if I did have a big bar of gold, I'm not going to be selling it or trading it. I'm just going to be holding it as a store of wealth for who knows what happens. You know, if I have, so, and again, you could use Bitcoin as collateral if you get enough of it. And if you want to buy a house or it gets passed on to your children and they want to buy a house, they can use it as collateral when they get a mortgage. So that's kind of why I want to hold it. I'm not interested in Ethereum or Solana or Cardano or XRP. I'm not going to use them. If I was trading, and I know people that do that, they trade. They're like, boom, there's a big drop. You saw the charts. They're like, I'm going to buy low and they day trade it. And they're fast. They're like, boom, boom, boom. They'll make like a couple $100 a day by doing it. I don't want to do that. I tried it. I'm not that good at it. I don't want to develop the skill for it. It's not how I want to spend my time, but I am happy for growth.
So you're a hodler.
Now I'm a hodler. I wasn't before. I just bought it because I'm like, yeah, I'll throw $100 here into it here and there. But now I'm convinced that I need to have at least a portion of my investment money in that based on everything that I showed you. I'm convinced. I don't want to go crazy and put all my eggs into that basket, but I think it would be foolish not to have at least some of them.
So you mentioned the blockchain being like little bitty cubes that carry all this information. So is that just, can any just random person just get into that and look at that information?
But that's a great question. I would assume that it is public knowledge, public database, and that you could do that. I don't know how it's done. I've never looked into it, but that is a big draw for companies that want to use the blockchain and blockchain technology. I don't understand how to look at it, but I know that it is huge for corporations. It's like a huge big deal.
Yeah. So I know you talked about storing the Bitcoin in the thumb drive and keeping it in a Faraday cage, keep it separate. But I guess I'm still trying to wrap my brain around how to buy it. I know we got the Coinbase account, so you can buy it through the Coinbase, but do you buy it through your Schwab account too?
No, no. Great question. As far as the cold storage and the hard wallet things, you guys ignore that. Ignore that for now. This is a lot of information. Down the road, let's buy it first before we worry about all that.
Yes.
I will send you something regarding how to buy it. I've got a 9-step process. I'm going to tell you what it is, and I will send you this PDF. It's very simple. You don't have to do all 9 steps at once. Number 1, choose your exchange. Coinbase or Kraken. Those are the 2 most popular ones.
Okay.
Number 2, set up your account. All right, just like any other account, you're going to need to give them your information. Give them your information. That's it. Have a driver's license available. You might even need a utility bill. for address verification, I don't know, but you set up your account. That's step number 2. And I will send you this PDF. Step number 3, you got to link your bank account, not your Schwab investment account. You got to link a bank account, your checking account or your savings account.
So would you suggest doing a separate account, a dedicated account, like you had taught us with the budgeting?
I don't do that. I don't do that. I just use the same bank account that I do my ATM withdrawals out of.
Okay.
Then after you link the bank account, you deposit money into, let's say you got Coinbase. You put money into Coinbase and there's a little thing. It's like, hey, do you want to put money? There's like a little thing. You'll see a little tiny picture of a bank. And you're like, I'll transfer money from my bank into Coinbase. And then you go to the buy sell section and then you buy some Bitcoin. You all have bought a stock. So you just do the same thing. You buy Bitcoin. That's it. And then you have Bitcoin. That's it. There's also steps for the cold storage wallet. That's step 6, 7, 8, and 9. But get to the first 5 steps first. Don't make it complicated. Remember how you guys felt before you opened your investment account. You were putting it off. You're like, oh my gosh, this is so much. I've never done it before. And then you did it. Now, how do you feel? You're like, hey, it wasn't so bad.
I'm better, but yeah.
So same thing. Don't make a big deal out of it. Tiny little steps. Don't jump ahead. Just one tiny step at a time.
Well,
How
I
you
feel like,
doing there, Sarah?
yeah, this was gonna ask.
I know
Oh,
you got the boys.
yeah, they kind of kicks them out for a minute because they were getting crazy. Um, I like it's so fascinating. I'm I'm tracking with you, but I still feel like there's so much that I'm just like, oh my gosh, I don't even understand how that's a thing, like mining Bitcoin and stuff. It's just like such a weird concept to me. But one thing that I'm kind of curious about or trying to figure out is like, I don't know if this is the right question, but kind of like, so I understand the value in it. I understand like if like it being something that's we can use through all the world or like that's sort of where money is going. I understand why we would start wanting to think about putting money there. But what I'm curious about sort of is like what's the point if it seems to me like once it's all bought, then what happens? Like and people just to me now you kind of said that with the hodler thing. Like if everybody just wants to hold it, then I don't know. I kind of don't get what would be the benefit of of its existence. Like I don't know. Maybe it does that question make sense?
It totally does. It totally does. And what is the benefit of gold? What if you buy like a 1-ounce gold coin, like a Canadian maple coin or gold bullion, and you just hold it, you don't spend it. Why would you hold gold?
For the value to increase. I don't know. I mean, I gold is sort of a standard value though, isn't it? So I don't know. I mean, just for a day when I need it.
A rainy day.
So let's look at it this way. Yes to all of those things. Hey, who knows? Maybe you'll need it. Gold will always be gold. Gold will always have some sort of value. As in class number 6, as we talked all about gold, gold is gold. Our rings are usually made of gold, our wedding rings, you know, white gold, yellow gold. There's some value there. As we talked in class number 6, a bar of gold, pretend like this is a bar of gold. A gold is just gold. It doesn't really change. But what does change? Those pieces of paper. At one time, it took 500 pieces of paper to buy, you know, 28 ounces of gold. Today, it takes about 3,000 pieces of paper for the same gold. So why are we holding these pieces of paper when we keep needing more pieces of paper to buy the same thing? Don't we want a little of this thing? So the value of gold or even Bitcoin is not, I wouldn't say it really changes that much because there's only a specific amount of gold on the planet. And there's only a specific amount of Bitcoin you have. That's it. It doesn't change. What's changing?
The demand.
How many pieces of paper it takes to get this? That's why in Germany they were exchanging their pieces of paper. They were taking like a whole basket full of paper to buy a pair of gloves because they know, well, a pair of gloves is always going to be a pair of gloves. But tomorrow I'm going to need 2 baskets of this paper money to get the same pair of gloves. You're getting something that retains its value. Is that kind of?
Yeah, it does make sense. I'm just trying to picture what like it would mean for like day-to-day life, or like, do you, I mean, I guess what I'm picturing is like, oh, one day we would be using Bitcoin instead of like our currency. Maybe I'm going too far to getting too lost in it, but just like, oh, then wouldn't we need to spend it and not, I don't know. Then I don't know. I guess I gotta learn more about it.
No. I love the way you're thinking, Sarah. And a lot of questions nobody knows for sure. A lot of people have different ideas, and we're all working through it. We cannot predict the future. But we do know that history is repetition and there's nothing new under the sun. So what has happened all throughout history? The fiat currency has gone to 0 all throughout history. But what's happened to gold and silver all throughout history? It's still here. So if you bought some gold coins, how would that look in your day-to-day? Hey, I have some money. Instead of buying fast food every day and going to Starbucks, I saved a couple of bucks over the past 3 or 4 or 6 months. I'm going to buy a gold coin. I'm going to put my paper dollars that are losing value every day, and I'm going to put it into a piece of gold instead of consumption, instead of buying that extra dress or that pair of shoes or that fancy purse or the fancy car. Instead of consuming, I'm going to put it in something else. And then I'm just going to have it sit in my safe. And hey, who knows? If an emergency comes, at least I have something of value. And if I never need it, maybe I can pass it to my children as a legacy. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, I got you. Putting money in something that's holding value or increasing in value rather than losing value, or like the currency, right? At least considering that, looking at that as the direction. Yeah.
And let's talk about what you said. Are people going to be using it as currency? People are using it as currency. They are. There's also other types of digital assets that are sometimes easier to exchange. So all throughout history, people did not really exchange gold every day. They exchanged silver, right? A lot, because gold was worth so much, but silver coins were easier to, to buy a dozen eggs with. You can't bring a whole gold bar, like that. But if you were going to buy land, then maybe you would bring your gold bars out. So in that perspective, Bitcoin is always talked about as digital gold. But if you were going to use a digital currency for everyday exchanges, you could use BCH, that Bitcoin Cash that Beth asked about. Or you could use something like Ethereum as cash. Ethereum, like I think one Ethereum, maybe it's like $600, but one Bitcoin is, or maybe it's $5,000. I don't know, but it's a lot less than
Yeah.
$120,000.
Once Bitcoin is all sold out, I mean, are people going to still be able to buy it because they're just buying small bits of it? Or do you think one of these other digital currencies will kind of take the next spot and that will be the one that will be like,
People still, there are people that are using Bitcoin as a currency. So if you want Bitcoin and all of it is mined, you'll still be able to get Bitcoin. But do you want to get Bitcoin at today's price?
yes, not that. Okay.
So
yeah. That's so interesting. Wow. Yeah.
it's mind blowing.
Yeah.
It's just a trip.
Yeah, it is.
But it's important knowledge. It's
Yeah,
important
yeah.
knowledge to have this, and what
Yeah.
you choose to do with it is your choice. I would do a little more research, maybe find a YouTube video. I think even Amazon Prime or Netflix has videos on Bitcoin, and they can probably explain it a lot better than me, but at least I've introduced you to
Oh,
it.
you definitely explained it better than I had no idea, but I also just thought it was like, I don't know. I don't
Does,
know.
does
Not,
TWF have anything on Bitcoin?
Great question. I do not believe there's anything directly on Bitcoin at all. Although, uh, although sometimes Hans has mentioned Bitcoin, just assuming that everybody knows exactly what I've just told you. And there are some ETFs that you may have already bought that use Bitcoin or are holding Bitcoin. So, yeah, it is affecting the stock market and funds. There are funds that are using it. So
Thank you, Larissa. That was very interesting.
you are welcome. And I just want to close out with your wins on a great note. And just for Grace and Debbie and Andrea, I know that you were not here with us. We missed you.
Yeah.
And I just want you guys to take a look at your wins. You've come so far in 7 weeks or 8 weeks. We had that bonus call. You've come so far. You guys have gained so much knowledge. You've opened accounts. You've bought stocks where you may never have before. So how are you feeling about before you started to now? Like, do you feel more empowered? Is there something that you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that I could ever do this and I did it. I'm so happy I did this. Like, any win.
I do feel more confident, and I feel like we're on the right track, to help, you know, our future and our children's future. But there's still so much volatility in everything that we do. So, I guess, just shorten it up. I feel like this is the right thing to do, but I feel like we still have to just put our confidence in God. And yeah, I'm glad I'm doing it. I really am. And I'm glad that we're getting started on Bitcoin, because I did look at it in 2010 and 2011. And I remember asking person after person after person after person about it. And they were all like, no, 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 no. And I knew then I should have gotten it. And I ignored that yearning, that desire to do it, to figure it out. So I'm kicking myself, but I'm taking that lesson and I'm not going to let it repeat itself. So I'm going to do it now and buy more stocks and keep learning.
Awesome. And Beth, you're on fire. Like you
Thank you.
are inspiring me, like all the posts you put in the women's group, and your victories and your progress. I'm so inspired by you, and I'm so grateful that you're here. And like you have no idea how it just makes my heart happy to
Uh,
know that like I have a small part in just being the wind under your wings.
you're a huge part, huge part. You and Grace. I
I love you. I do. I love you, Beth. I
love
love you, Sarah, Grace, and Andrea and Debbie. I'm just really grateful for you guys.
you. Thank you.
And Sarah.
Yes. Okay, so I would have never like thought I would have done these things, thought I could do these things, thought that I was the kind of person who would be like, I don't know. It just wasn't even, I was just like, oh, I hadn't. So everything I've learned is like brand new to me. And I feel like I've learned so much, but I still feel like I'm just getting started. Like, and which it feels exciting too, because it's like, okay, like this is, like you say, kind of a lifelong journey, and there's a lot to learn, and just kind of one step at a time. You've made it so doable and possible and simple in the way that you explain things. I mean, even this, like taking the time to explain what you did about Bitcoin, I feel like if I heard it from somewhere else, I would just been like, oh my gosh, I will never know what that is. I can't, that's not for me. That's somebody else. But I do feel like you, even just the history of like money and the fiat account, like the fiat currencies, and understanding that makes me understand something about this, the weight of this, kind of where we're going, just considering things I wouldn't have considered that actually I do want to know about. I do want to consider. That is important to me. Once I know a little bit about it, it is important to me to learn more about those things and what we're talking about in these classes. So it does feel like a gift to be able to grasp some things and to be able to see not only that I have a lot to learn, but that I want to learn, that there's actually reason to learn these things and to grow in these things beyond just like, oh, that's cool that some people like that and figured out how to do that, but that's not my personality, or that's not my whatever. It feels like actually no, it is. There are reasons and interests and good things, good reasons for me to be involved in this, for my own future, for my kids' futures, and yeah, just to be a person who is aware of the times and what's happening more, and not completely blind to an area that is important to know about. So yeah, I haven't accomplished as much probably as anybody else in the class. That's okay. I know I have a lot to do. I started writing a little list for myself this week of just little things, and I didn't do any of them. I'll be honest. I didn't get to them. But I feel a little bit of like I don't feel discouraged. I feel encouraged by the way you lead us, encouraged that, like, okay, you have an off day, you have an off week, an off month, whatever it is, get back up, take the next small step, and just do the next thing. And so, yeah, I feel very encouraged, not discouraged, not looking at my progress negatively, but looking at every little step is a huge progress because I would have never done this before. And I'm excited to get involved in the TWF and all the other things that you're kind of encouraging us to do in our homework and all that. Yeah. So thank you so much. It's been beyond a gift. And I actually was talking to a friend last night and telling her a little bit about the class. And she's a single mom. She has one son, and Caitlin. And she wanted to know right away what your Facebook group was. And yeah, so she like,
I think I saw her join. I think.
did you? Caitlin is her name. Yeah, yeah. So we actually met at a park a couple of summers ago in town. Just started talking and became friends and have spent time together. I've invited her to church with us. So I'm praying that she gets saved. But
Wow.
she joined the group. So anyway, yeah, it's been a humongous blessing. And I feel like it's turning the way that I'm moving. It's changing the direction I'm taking. So, which is huge. Yeah.
Well, a huge thing I'm super proud of you, Sarah, is obviously you're here and you're showing up. So you can't say, I didn't do anything last weekend or this weekend, because you're showing up and you're here. And you opened that UTMA account. That is so massive, and such a huge step. So I'm super, super proud of you. And I'm going to say goodnight to your handsome boys. And remember, everybody, we don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. Pick your trading day and time, and pick your learning day and time, even if it's just like 15 minutes to pop on and buy a stock or listen to 15 minutes of something that's going to move you forward. Love you guys. Have a great evening, and text me or put messages in if you have a question, or if you're like, I need to talk to you. I'm here for you guys. Love you tons. Love you. Have a great day.
Thank you, Larissa.